Get out of my laboratory! Or invention is a teacher. I think that this is how the great thinkers learned in the past. They would grab onto something like gravitation, electromagnetism, pendulums, and try to figure out how they worked. What forces influenced the things they observed. Inventing an invention makes us think of pet rocks, Chia Pets, and cheap junk. But the true meaning of invention is following your path of curiosities. For example, aren't you curious about infrared photography? Infrared lamps that but emit a faint red color but light up an IR photo? Infrared camera for Raspberry Pi Zero costs $12. And the UNIX-based Raspberry Pi Zero just about $20. Raspberry Pi contains a couple commands with dozens of options that you can tinker with, from ISO, shutter speed, to options like brightness and contrast. Just a simple curiosity can lead you on a path of exploring UNIX, photography, the light spectrum, and even let you brush up against astrography, where you get to think about flaws in your charged coupled device, the CCD sensor that replaces film, and how you have to hunt down and eliminate the dead pixels. And what a great pleasure it is to see that your photos are flawless, and then begin stacking them to average out and remove noise. All these little triumphs add to your knowledge and wisdom. It is okay to be overwhelmed, but it is not okay to shy away from something that captured your interest because it seems too confusing. The confusion just comes from not knowing all the steps to get to taking your first IR photo. Start with the $150 8GB Raspberry Pi 4 and get a couple of monitors and create your first laboratory. Then get the $20 Raspberry Pi Zero and you'll have your first computer network with a satellite Raspberry Zero that only requires power, so it just needs a single power cable. Attach the Noir camera to it and start exploring what it means to average images to eliminate noise. Another Raspberry Pi Zero, this time with a normal $9 camera, can watch your flowers with time-lapse photography. This is an example of a modern path of invention. From this point on, you get to choose your own next steps. You can study Node.js, Unix, Bash, and become a programmer. You can move on beyond the digital and buy your first $200 DIY 3D printer. And, for example, print cases for your Raspberry Pis. After some practice with your servo motors, you can build a Raspberry-powered telescope that also doubles as a deadly space laser. Hey, you never know. It is 2020 after all. This is how the great beings that invented the experiment of mandatory public education learned. Baby step by baby step, traveling a decades-long journey with curiosities and adventures. A journey where every new step adds to the previous to create a body of knowledge and wisdom. When you feel you hit a milestone, write a tutorial on how you did it, on what you improved. Make some video tutorials and put them on your resume. Show your investors or employer that you know that your mind has no limits and that you are a brilliant inventor and a fine scientist.